What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster, and I thought that this was gonna end up having to be one of those episodes that was difficult to record, difficult to get through, and probably not something that most people would end up wanting to listen to. That is not what happened. For the people that didn't watch, UConn came back from 14 points down with 12 minutes left in this game to beat Villanova at home in the XL Center. And let me just say this. Sometimes you got to forget about the context of a game, of a season, of where you are. Sometimes it's really not worth it to think about the fact that after UConn was coming off of a brutal loss at Seton Hall, the loss to Villanova already on their resume, that they dug themselves a hole that was 14 points deep with 12 minutes left to those same Villanova Wildcats in the house that Donyell Marshall built, right? We don't need that stress in our lives. What we do need is something to enjoy, right? For example, a 27-6 run over the course of 12 minutes, a comeback that allowed the Huskies to beat Villanova and avoid putting themselves in a position where, the bubble talk would have actually started popping up, pun intended. And look, before I get into anything that actually happened tonight, I just kind of want to say, if you can't get excited about a win like this, a comeback like this, a run like this, a performance like what we got out of Liam and Terrace down the stretch, right? If you can't get excited about a win over a Big East rival that may be down at the moment, but has won two national titles in the last decade, been to three Final Fours in the last decade, if that three from the corner that should have been an and one from Liam that cut the lead to 55-52 didn't get you up out of your seat, or the dunk that Terrace had to kind of put the finishing touches on this game didn't get you screaming and excited, if Hassan Diarra drawing a charge in the final minutes to get possession back of a tight game doesn't get you fired up, like what are you watching? What are you watching sports for? What are you watching UConn for? Like I get it, right? This is UConn. UConn wins titles. You don't hang banners for stuff that doesn't matter. We hang banners that count, right? We have the highest of expectations that you can possibly have in the world of college basketball. I don't disagree with any of that, and I think that that's where UConn should set their level of expectation heading into a season. You can also do all of those things while enjoying the victories within the program in the micro, right? Like I watched this one with my family tonight, and my son was going absolutely nuts down the stretch of this game. The terrorist dunk, the Hassan Diarra charge, the Liam through. Like he gets into it. He loves UConn. He loves watching this team play. And he understands what rankings are, but he's 9 years old, man. Look, he doesn't really get the context, the big picture of it, where UConn is. He was just locked in and enjoying this specific game tonight and the fact that UConn won a basketball game, right? My wife was locked all the way in on it tonight. Like, she's not the biggest sports fan in the entire world, but she loves UConn and she loves being able to watch the game with us. And she tends to be the one that's a little bit more of a stickler for bedtime schedules than I tend to be. But she was the one that made the exception tonight to, let my son stay up before he had to start the whole bedtime shower routine. And they're upstairs celebrating this thing like it's the Final Four, watching this game. And honestly, like I kind of feel like I needed that myself a little bit, right? It's easy to get lost as a fan in the frustration of a season that is not going the way that you had hoped that it would and that you expected that it would at the start, right? It's very easy to kind of let that seep into uh, the way that you watch a game late in the season. But at the same time, like, basketball is a kid's game. It's a sport. These are 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds that are getting paid a lot of money, but they are still 18 to 21 year olds that are playing this game. And sometimes it makes sense to just kind of enjoy it as a kid would enjoy it, right? To sit there and not worry about what this means against St. John's, not worry about the fact that that fight wasn't there late against Seton Hall, not worry about injuries or worry about the body language of players, and sometimes none of that stuff really helps you, right? Sometimes the best thing to do is just say, "Hell yeah, we came back and won. Hell yeah, we beat Villanova. Hell yeah, Liam McNeely." Sometimes that reminder is kind of a good thing, and that was something that I think uh, that I needed tonight watching UConn play. So it was a fun one, man. It was an enjoyable one, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying a win when a win comes. Anyway, on to this specific game, right? These slow starts are going to end up being the death of me, right? You know, it, I thought that the early portion of this game, a lot of it came down to Villanova was able to win the one-on-one matchups that they wanted to get. Wooga Poplar had a stretch where he was awesome. Tyler Perkins had a stretch where he made some shots. Jordan Longino had a stretch where he looked really, really good. Eric Dixon hit his open threes while Solo Ball missed his open threes. Um, and that's kind of what led to Villanova getting the lead. It felt like it took about 15 minutes for UConn to really find the level of energy they needed. They cut into the lead late in the first half. Same thing happened coming out of halftime, though. Villanova jumped all over them, and it took them about 8 minutes to really find that energy that they needed to be able to make a run and win a game against the Villanova team that they probably should be beating in their own building, right? I thought Liam was sensational in the final 12 minutes, right? As good as he was against Creighton. It wasn't just the scoring, right? He put this team on his back and he dragged them across the finish line. The contested rebounds that he had on the defensive end of the floor, there were like three or four of them late in the game where he just elevated and said, I want that shit more than you do. He drew a couple fouls and got to the foul line when it really kind of relieved pressure for UConn. The three that he hit in the corner, which really should have been an and one, was a really tough shot, tougher than I think people realize when you have a guy running at you from the right hand side. Like he sees that out of the corner of his eye. And the assist that he had to Terrace to ice it, as good as he was down the stretch against Creighton, I thought that this performance was right there at that same level. Now, the problem for UConn overall is that right now he's really the only one that is playing at that kind of a level, right? We've seen Solo do it at times this season. And Solo was actually pretty good tonight. He didn't shoot the ball great, but expecting something more than what he did tonight is expecting something elite. And he's not just when you're a shooter, you're just not going to do that every single night. Um, but he was good, man. 13.6 assists, not a single turnover to his name. Defensively, something to be something to be wanting there, but that's kind of the story of Solo Ball season, and kind of the story of who he is as a player right now. We've seen Alex play at that level. He has not been at that level for a while. I think Terrace has had his moments this season. He was really good down the stretch as well. Hassan has had his moments. They came, generally speaking, when he was healthier than he is right now. But tonight, like a lot of that stuff just didn't happen until the second half when UConn had dug their hole. And I think the larger point is this, right? We can sit here and get into the nitty gritty of, I didn't the execution on this set wasn't perfect, or somebody missed this shot, or I think that the lineup would feel better if this player was in this rotation spot instead of this player. I think that these lineups make more sense than these other lineups. And um, at this point in this season, I don't think the X's and O's stuff, I don't think the lineup stuff, I don't think getting into the nitty gritty of what you see on the film or what you see on the tape, I don't think any of that is really worth discussing with what this program can be. Because we know what UConn wants to do. We know how they want to play. We know what they're trying to run. We know what teams are trying to do to stop them. Like, there's no secrets right now. Not when you've had this much tape out on a program that's been doing the same thing for the majority of 3 seasons, and not when everybody on the planet knows where the limitations are, right? It's defensively for this Husky team, and specifically it is, guys like Solo Ball and Alex Carabin, you've been able and sometimes Samson Johnson too, but that's a difference that you've been able to attack. Um, so to me, and I feel like I'm playing armchair psychologist a little bit here, but it feels like most of this is, and I don't know if culture thing is the right word, but um, I thought that there were some really interesting comments that came from Dan when he had his media availability on Monday after the Seton Hall loss, a couple days removed from it, but before UConn played against Villanova. It started with this, and I actually have the audio for this one. College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rithmm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rithmm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rithmm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rithmm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rithmm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rithmm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. Bet insurance tokens, odds boosts, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two here or there. Be sure to keep your eye out in the app for the Field of 68 specials that we'll be running throughout the season as well. So go download the BetMGM app to sign up today.
It's one of the heaviest uniforms to wear in college basketball. We've got a giant, target on us based on the recent history and the real recent history and what we've been the last 25, 30 years. I think some athletes or some players, they thrive in the uniform, and then I think for some other athletes, it's tougher, it's heavier, it's the expectations they wear on you as opposed to bring out the best in you.
And then there was this from Dave Borges that Dave posted the quote. I couldn't find the video of it. I looked for the video, but Dave posted the quote of it. And Dan said, this is a direct quote. I think that there's many games this year where we could have coached better. Everyone on the roster that got opportunities could have played better. This is a tricky time of year with the season maybe not going the way some players have wanted it to go for them. If you have too many of those types of players on your roster, it's like never before because of the portal. It affects a lot of teams, not just UConn, in terms of people going 1 foot out the door or disconnecting themselves from the group. Dan's quote continues, I think that's a real concern for every coach, for every team. Coaches take these things harder than players do, minus a couple of players, maybe Alex, Solo. Some of the players that know what's truly at stake here and have been at the top of the mountain know what that loss meant. I think you have some others in the room that have never won near the level we've won at, and that don't really know what the situation is we just put ourselves in. That's the end of the quote. He also went on to say that he wishes there was more fights in the locker room, and not because he wants his team to actually come to blows, but because he wants them to be angry. He wishes that that some of the guys were more pissed off about not getting enough playing time, about somebody else not playing hard enough, about the way that the season has gone, about some of the overall effort level, and that kind of, we talked about leadership after the Seton Hall disaster. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at, right? Like there's nobody, I don't think Cam Spencer would have accepted the level of effort that you're seeing from some of these guys. I know for a fact Andre Jackson would not have, because I've heard stories about what happened with him after some of those losses in January. There's one specifically about something that happened at Seton Hall that I don't know if I'm able to talk about yet. Maybe one day I will. But I don't think Steph Castle would have taken that. I don't know if Steph is necessarily the guy that'll get in your face, but and yell at you, but he's a guy that would definitely get in your face and make you get up to his level. I don't think DC would have accepted that. I don't think Adamo would. There's plenty of guys that were leaders on this team that would not have accepted the way that UConn came out tonight, came out on Saturday, came out on Tuesday at Creighton. And I think that is one thing that is kind of missing from this group right now. And, I said last week, I don't want to do the post-mortem thing yet. I don't want to do this season is over. Who should stay? Who should go? Who will stay? Who will portal? There's a time and place for all of that, especially when I'm doing like publicly facing content and things like this. But I promise you, those conversations have been happening for a month, and not just at UConn, at every single program in the country. And I promise you, because I have conversations with these staffs, um, every staff in the country has their eyes on the possible transfers that they would want to target to bring in, whether that's high major guys that they think might be at a place where they're not going to make as much money, whether it's mid major guys that they know are going to be good enough to step up to a higher level and come in and contribute it. Whether it's players at a specific position that that staff has been looking to target and looking to upgrade on. Whether it is players that have a certain mentality. In UConn's case, I would say that I would be very appreciative if the staff prioritized the level of toughness and physicality and mental fortitude as they did some of their evals and did some of their homework and looked at who they were going to try to bring in from the portal this year, right? And I think the biggest thing is when the coaching staffs make their decisions and kind of figure out who they want gone off of a roster and guys that they are going to try to run off. Um, I think it's very easy for those players to be able to read between the lines and see what is happening. Maybe you go from being the eighth guy on the starting team in practice to being one of the guys on the practice team in practice, going from the blue team to the white team, right? Maybe it is the fact that you see your minutes get cut. Maybe it is something where you hear from your representatives or you hear from people at home that the staff has been talking to other programs about a potential transfer, right? The writing is always on the wall. It's not that difficult to like figure some of this stuff out. If you are at most programs a four-star player and you're not really playing at all by the end of the season, like I think that people can kind of figure out what is happening there. And that's not something that's specific at UConn, but I think we've seen in the past the way that those things kind of go, right? Um, if if you are a player where your season has been really disappointing and it's clear that the staff doesn't think that you were the right fit, yes, you could probably make a guess that that player is going to end up finding a way to move on from the situation that they're in, right? And the players can figure that stuff out. Like these guys aren't dumb, man. They're in that practice every single day, and if you know you're going to be run off, and you are one of these guys that know that this your time with that program is coming to an end, um, it's just so easy to fall into the trap of going through the motions. Like, why are you going to try to put in the effort when you know that it is all for naught? When you're going to end up playing 2 or 3 minutes a night, and then you're going to be told, "Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. You can head on out of here, and hope you have a great life." Right? Um, the last couple of years, UConn hasn't really had to deal with that at the same level that a lot of other programs have had to because of their success and because of the fact that uh, when you are, I'll just use Solo and Jalen as an example, right? When you're riding the bench for a team that is competing for a national championship and you're saying, I'm not playing, but I'm not playing because I'm solo ball. I'm a freshman and I'm behind Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer, who are 23-year-old all league guys that are going to get drafted and play in the NBA. That it's very clear why you're not getting the minutes that you were hoping you were going to be able to get, right? If you are Jalen Stewart and you're sitting there on the bench and you're saying, well, look, I I want to be playing, but look at the development of Alex Carabin and what he's going to end up being, and look at how good Steph Castle is, and look at how good Andre Jackson got, and then Jordan Hawkins got, and you look at the player development. It's very easy for you to kind of say, hey, look, you know what? One, I got a chance to win a national championship here. Two, I want to keep getting better because I want to be the next guy in that group. And three, it ends up being a culture thing where it's easy to kind of be one of those guys on the bench when you see what your future can possibly be and you have a chance to win a championship. It's very different, very, very, very different when you are stuck in that role on the bench. You don't see a future for yourself within the program and you're not winning at the level that you want to be able to win at. You don't have a chance to win championships. That's when things can really kind of unravel when you aren't as connected as you necessarily want to be. And there's been so many programs around the country that have dealt with a lot of things like that that UConn has not had to experience in the 2 years. And I'll say this frankly, like I think the 2 years that this has happened, the 22, 23, and 23, 24 seasons are when like this portal shit has really gone crazy. And uh, I don't think UConn fans have experienced the downsides of that and some of the risks of that the way that other programs have during that time period for very obvious reasons. And frankly, I think that is where the key to having some kind of success in March in this season lies, right? It's not the staff coming up with different schemes or trying to reinvent the wheel defensively, right? It's not whether or not you're going to be able to find a way to play with a certain player in this spot. That's not what's going to happen, right? If UConn's going to have a chance to make any noise in March, it will be because they avoided the pitfalls of locker room cancers and players being unhappy about their minutes and what's going to happen next season, right? It's because they do things like cut the rotation down to just the guys that actually want to be playing for UConn, not just today, but potentially a year from now, unless they're going to the NBA, like a Liam McNeely, right? To me, at this point, there's only 7 guys that I want to see getting minutes. It's the starting five plus Terrace and Stewie, and I don't think that that's really all that surprising to anyone. If you have to steal a couple minutes here or there with Aiden or Ahmad at the point, like so be it. That's what you have to do. But those are the 7 because those are the 7 guys that I think you wouldn't be surprised to see show up with floor burns or bruises from trying to run through a screen after the game, that are diving on the floor and that are playing with a certain level of passion, right? And I certainly would not complain if the rest of the season, the minutes split at the 5 was closer to what it was tonight than it has been in the past, right? Terrace Reed playing 27 minutes and Samson Johnson playing 13. So even if all of that happens, that might not be enough for UConn to do what I would hope that they were able to do at the start of the season. Because to be frank, this is a flawed roster that has not developed the way that I had hoped that it would develop over the course of a season. But like, man, I can deal with that. I could deal with flawed rosters. I could deal with miss evals. I could deal with UConn not being the number 1 team in college basketball because it's fun to see them win games like this. What I can't deal with, and what I think a lot of fans will agree with me on, is watching a team play where it feels like we care more about the outcome than the guys that are actually wearing the uniforms, if that makes sense. And I know that it was a slow start on Tuesday night. I know that it was a little bit of a sleepy arena early on. I don't have to explain to people that would find this podcast and listen to this podcast that it is tough to get to Hartford for a 6:30 tip off on a Tuesday night. Trust me, I get that, you know, but I don't think that you could watch the the back end of that first half or the last 12 minutes of the game and say that those kids don't care. I don't think you could watch the way that Liam McNeely celebrated making shots and the emotion that he had and say that he doesn't care. I don't think that you could watch Jalen Stewart snag that offensive rebound over a Villanova dude, lay it in, and then celebrate and flex and say that he doesn't care. I don't think you could watch Haas draw that charge or dive on the floor and say he doesn't care. There's no way that you could say Sampson doesn't care, right? So watching the guys that are out there, Alex too. Like I know he's been going through it, but he cares, man. He probably cares too much, which is why he's in his own head. And uh, those are the guys that when you watch them and you see them play and you see that kind of emotion, kind of that's when it gets fun and that's when you can celebrate. And even if that is nothing more than getting to the dance and maybe winning a game or two in the Big East tournament or a game or two in the NCAA, whatever it ends up being, like I think we can all live with that and support that and enjoy that and embrace that as fans. It is when it looks like they are going through the motions. That is when it's like, why? What am I doing? Why am I investing myself in this? So, credit to them. Hell of a comeback. Really fun moment, and I can tell you that there was at least one 9-year old in the state of New Jersey that had a great night watching UConn come back and win. So I don't need to tell you guys this. The Johnnies are up next. I could sit here and roll through a preview for you if I wanted to, but I mean, we know what St. John's does. We know how UConn can deal with it. We know where they have struggles dealing with it. We know what this game means for UConn. More importantly, we know what it means for St. John's. They can maintain a 2-game lead over Creighton in the Big East regular season standings. We know where this game is going to be. We know who is coaching the other team. We know how Rick Pitino's teams force turnovers and the impact that will have on the Huskies. Like, I firmly believe this, right? And you might call me crazy, but I firmly believe this, that if UConn shows up and plays with the toughness on both ends that they did in the second half against Creighton or the last 12 minutes tonight against Villanova, and you get that over a 40-minute stretch in Madison Square Garden, they can win I'm not going to say they will win that game because St. John's is damn good, and I don't think people quite realize how damn good they are, but they can absolutely go into the Garden and beat St. John's on Sunday afternoon. So here is to hoping that those last 12 minutes of a Tuesday night in Hartford is what will galvanize this group to be able to turn this season into something more successful than it has been to date. So I will be there. I'll be in the Garden on Sunday afternoon. We'll be doing our show after dark there from the arena after the game. And if I see you guys there, I hope you enjoy it as much as I am. And I think that it will be an experience to see what a St. John's game is like when St. John's is good and they have the Garden rocking, because I don't think that this is going to end up being as heavy of a UConn crowd as we have seen in the past. And I can tell you that because I'm trying to get tickets for my family to come up, and I really, really, really do not feel like spending $1,000 to keep them from having to sit in the third deck with a bunch of St. John's fans. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. If anyone's got 3 lower level that they want to sell me at face value, I'm all ears. Until then, I'll see you guys on Sunday evening.